Robert Irwin was once known simply as the little boy who stood beside crocodiles, wore khaki shirts, and lived in the shadow of a father the world could never let go. That child has since disappeared. In his place now stands an adult man carrying confidence, charm, media headlines, and a life that people seem unable to stop scrutinizing. His rise has attracted both praise and criticism, and has been observed far too closely. For Terri Irwin, this shift has been anything but easy. She nurtured him, shielded him, and kept the Irwin name alive. Yet now, Robert is moving into a world that even she cannot entirely manage. Join us as we look at the transformation that has reshaped public perception of Robert Irwin, and consider what it might mean for the mother who has always remained by his side. Robert Clarence Irwin arrived on December 1, 2003, in Buddham, Queensland. From the very start, his life was never meant to be ordinary. He was born into a family the world already recognized. His father, Steve Irwin, was the Australian conservationist who gained fame through The Crocodile Hunter. His mother, Terri Irwin, an American naturalist from Eugene, Oregon, helped operate Australia Zoo alongside Steve. Robert received his name from both sides of the family, after Steve's father Bob Irwin and Terri's father Clarence Rains. He also had an older sister, Bindi, who was already part of the Irwin narrative. So before Robert could even grasp the concepts of fame, cameras, wildlife, or inheritance, the world had already placed him at the center of all of it. 1 month following his birth, Robert received a blessing from Tibetan Buddhist nuns at a ceremony held in Australia Zoo. But soon after, another incident made global headlines. Steve held baby Robert in one arm while feeding a chicken carcass to a 3.8-meter saltwater crocodile named Murray. With Robert positioned so near the reptile, public reaction was massive. Many drew comparisons to Michael Jackson holding his child outside a hotel window a year earlier. The uproar became so intense that the Queensland government modified its laws on crocodile handling. Children and untrained adults were forbidden from entering crocodile enclosures unless extremely strict regulations and training were satisfied. This marked a dramatic launch for Robert's public life and revealed how closely people were watching this family. That is why Robert's story never reads like a typical childhood narrative. It begins with affection, cameras, danger, and a surname that strangers already felt they owned. Before he could even speak for himself, outsiders were already debating his existence. To truly understand Robert, you need to know the two individuals who shaped his world. Terri Elizabeth Rains was born July 20, 1964, in Eugene, Oregon. Her father Clarence served in the U.S. Navy and later became a lieutenant for the Eugene Police Department. Her mother Judy worked as a schoolteacher. Terri grew up with two older sisters, Bonnie and Patricia, and a half-brother named Ralph. Her life shifted in 1991 when she visited wildlife rehabilitation centers in Australia and encountered Steve Irwin. Steve later described it as love at first sight. Terri felt the same connection, saying there was nobody like him anywhere, and describing Steve as an environmental Tarzan, a larger-than-life superhero figure. For months afterward, they became engaged. On June 4, 1992, they married at the First United Methodist Church of Eugene. Their honeymoon didn't involve beaches or quiet meals. Instead, they spent it capturing crocodiles. Footage from that journey became the first episode of The Crocodile Hunter, which premiered on Australian television in 1996 and later aired across North America. The program became a global sensation, broadcast in the United States, the United Kingdom, and over 130 countries, reaching around 500 million viewers. Steve's vitality, khaki shorts, thick Australian accent, and famous cry of crikey made him an icon worldwide. But behind that international fame was a family building a life in Beerwah, Queensland. First came Bindi in 1998, followed by Robert in 2003. His arrival made the Irwin legacy feel even larger. Cameras adored Steve, but Terri was never just a figure standing beside him. She was involved in the work, the danger, and the dream. That would prove important later, because when Steve was gone, she already understood the purpose. Steve Irwin was born February 22, 1962, in Upper Ferntree Gully near Melbourne. His parents, Lynn and Bob Irwin, both had Irish ancestry. Lynn worked as a maternity nurse, while Bob was a former plumber and amateur herpetologist who gathered reptiles. From an early age, Steve adored reptiles, especially snakes and lizards. He sometimes collected them even after his father warned him against it. In one well-known story, he brought a red-bellied black snake onto a public bus, carrying it inside the driver's esky. That fierce passion for animals later became his life's work. Steve didn't just educate people about animals, he made them care. Following The Crocodile Hunter, he appeared in Croc Files, The Crocodile Hunter Diaries, and New Breed Vets. Animal Planet also launched Croc Week, which aired every June from 2000 to 2007. In January 2006, Steve told Jay Leno that Discovery Kids was developing a show for Bindi, which later became Bindi, the Jungle Girl. But Robert had very little time with the man behind that legacy. By 2018, Robert Irwin was moving into a much larger role than anyone anticipated. He was entering bigger rooms, and the world was starting to see him differently. In April 2018, Robert stood with Terri and Bindi as they unveiled Steve Irwin's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It was a proud family moment, but also a heavy one. They were honoring Steve while Robert was growing old enough to carry that name in public. That same year, the family also met Charles, Prince of Wales, at Lady Elliot Island to discuss the future of the Great Barrier Reef. Robert's work was no longer just about television. It was connected to real conservation. His photography also kept improving. He became a junior finalist for Australian Geographic's 2018 Nature Photographer of the Year, with a sunset image from the Great Dividing Range. Then in October, he took over Australia Zoo's daily crocodile feeding demonstrations, a job once held by his father. That step said a great deal. It demonstrated trust, training, and bravery. But for Terri, it must have been more than a career move. Her son was now standing where Steve once stood, in front of crowds with danger nearby and confidence in his voice. Around the same time, Robert starred in and co-produced Crikey. It's the Irwins with Terri and Bindi. The show followed their work at Australia Zoo across 4 seasons. It brought the family back to the style of wildlife television that made Steve famous. But Robert was no longer just watching from the side. He was at the heart of it. And that was only the beginning. Robert's reputation also grew stronger in wildlife photography. In 2018, he received high honors in the youth category at the Nature's Best Windland Smith Rice International Photography Awards for a photo of a tundra swan at the Klamath Basin in Oregon. That image was displayed at the National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. Another photo, showing a huntsman spider in midair while holding a dead frog, was highly commended in the youth category at the Wildlife Photographer of the Year Awards. In 2019, 2 more of his photos, featuring a Eurasian dotterel and an emu, were commended in the youth category at the BirdLife Australia Photography Awards. He was also named a junior finalist for Australian Geographic's 2019 Nature Photographer of the Year for an image of a bearded dragon camouflaged on a log in Blackbutt, Queensland. 2 other photos were highly honored at the 2019 Nature's Best Windland Smith Rice International Photography Awards. One showed one of the last known northern white rhinoceroses in the world at the Pajeta Conservancy in Kenya. These were not small achievements. They revealed that Robert had his own vision, his own patience, and his own method of telling wildlife stories. The Queensland Tourism Industry Council even named him Young Achiever of the Year for helping build a vibrant and professional tourism industry. Then came 2020, when the world changed during the COVID-19 pandemic. Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk recruited Robert for a domestic tourism campaign encouraging Australians to vacation within their own state. He was becoming a face that people trusted, and that trust would soon carry him into even bigger arenas. In 2020, Robert was named junior runner-up for Australian Geographic's Nature Photographer of the Year for a close-up image of an Australian scrub python. He also won the People's Choice Award at the 2020 Wildlife Photographer of the Year Awards for a powerful photo of a large bushfire burning near the border of the Steve Irwin Wildlife Reserve during Australia's Black Summer. That image was later shown at the Natural History Museum in London. In February 2021, Robert made a guest appearance on Bluey as a dingo retail clerk named Alfie, showing that his public image could stretch beyond wildlife programs. But his real work still involved danger. While filming the fourth and final season of Crikey, It's the Irwins, Robert had to escape from a crocodile enclosure when a 3.7-meter, 350-kilogram saltwater crocodile named Casper ignored the food and came straight toward him. Robert climbed the enclosure wall just in time and was unhurt. In May 2022, he surprised fans by performing with the original members of the Wiggles at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre. Then in October, he published his first photo book, Robert Irwin's Australia, with all proceeds going to wildlife conservation. By October 2023, Robert replaced veterinarian Chris Brown as co-host of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, alongside Julia Morris. He agreed to host only if the show stopped using wildlife products. 2 months later, GQ Australia honored him as Social Force of the Year. For that first hosting season, he earned Logie nominations and was named by Media Week as a rising star in advertising, media, and marketing. Then in September 2024, Prince William named Robert and Namza Mombatha the first global ambassadors for the Earthshot Prize. By then, Robert had already proven he could handle wildlife, television, danger, and global attention. But what came next completely altered how people viewed him. On September 16, 2025, Robert made his Dancing with the Stars debut. He was the first star announced for season 34 and quickly became a fan favorite. People loved his energy, and his flirty jive relay with actress Zoe Gomez sent fans into a frenzy. But the deeper story emerged when Robert spoke about Steve. He told people in September 2025, "He's still part of me every day." He said Steve was part of every conversation, every photo, every memory, and every news story. Then came the moment that brought everything back to Terri. During Dedication Week in October 2025, Robert performed a deeply emotional dance for his mother. He said, "If there's one person in my life who has truly shaped who I am, it's my mom." He described Terri as strong, stable, funny, vulnerable, and the kind of person he wanted to become. The routine was set to "You'll Be in My Heart," and Terri joined him on stage at the end. The ballroom was in tears. Robert later said it was hard to dance while processing so much grief and gratitude, but afterward it felt like a weight lifted. Terri posted the performance and wrote, "I am truly blessed to be your mother." That moment quietly answered the headline in a different way. If Terri ever looked overwhelmed by Robert's transformation, it wasn't shame. It was the emotion of seeing the child she raised honor her on a world stage. But that emotional dance wasn't the final high point of Robert's journey. The biggest moment was still waiting for him, and this time he would have to fight through pain to reach it. By the season 34 finale on November 25, 2025, Robert was no longer just Steve Irwin's son doing well on a reality show. He had become the heart of the season. Before the finale, it came out that he had been dancing with a serious ribcage injury. He had strained his intercostal muscles, and the pain had lasted for weeks. His partner, Whitney Carson, had helped adjust parts of the choreography, but Robert kept going, without making the injury the focus. Their foxtrot to Footprints in the Sand by Leona Lewis made them the first individual couple of the season to earn a perfect score. Then Robert and Whitney won the competition. Carrie and Inaba told him, "There is so much love for you in this room, and there has been since day one." Robert choked up and said, "Thank you for changing my life." He became the youngest male winner and the first Australian male contestant to win. Since Bindi had won season 21 with Derek Hough, Robert and Bindi became the first celebrity siblings to both win the show. In December, Terri shared that the family has an informal social media contract where they check posts with each other before sharing. She joked that her kids stop her from saying something dumb, even warning, "You can't do that with your hands. It looks like a gang sign." She called Robert and Bindi amazingly good kids and said they still choose to stay and work at Australia Zoo. In early 2026, Robert pranked Terri with a mustache, and she told him, "I, as your mother, am incredibly proud," before joking with a headshake when he asked if he should keep it. Terri also said she would never say never to Dancing with the Stars, but joked she might adopt another child instead, because she is good at being the sidekick coach. By then, Robert had one favorite Australian media personality again, debuted in Zootopia 2, served as a conservation gala speaker, appeared at Laneway Festival, and landed the hosting role for Dancing with the Stars. The next pro, set for July 2026. Do you think Robert Irwin has truly escaped Steve's shadow, or will the world always judge him against his father's legend? And do you believe Terri's closeness with Robert has helped him become stronger, or could it be holding him back from fully living his own life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.